So the saying goes that CRA reviews all the cases that they lose in tax court, then change the rules so they won't lose again. It's hard to win a game when the referee keeps changing the rules. Today we're diving into a topic that every taxpayer, every business owner, and every finance professional should be aware of. Section 245 of the Income Tax Act, also known as the General Anti-Avoidance Rule, or GAR. And let me tell you, this little section of the Act packs a punch. We're talking about a measure so draconian that getting caught up in it could have serious and unintended consequences for taxpayers who are both individuals and corporations alike. So in this video, we're going to break down what GAR really means and how it can affect you, and why it's crucial to understand the dangers it poses. So what is GAR and why should I care? Well, let's start with a bit of the backstory. Prior to 1917, Canada had no income tax regulation. But in September of that year, in response to a growing chorus of voices in the House of Commons, Finance Minister Sir Thomas White tabled the Temporary War Measures and Income Tax Act. Since that time, it has gone from temporary to permanent, and from an original 4% marginal tax rate to a 53.5% marginal tax rate on income alone in British Columbia. A hallmark legal ruling, the 1936 Duke of Westminster case, established a key principle in tax law: that a taxpayer is entitled to arrange their affairs to minimize their tax liability, and the courts must respect it from the legal form of any arrangement if it complies with the letter of the law. The famous quote from that ruling, Lord Tomlin said, "Every man is entitled, if he can, to order his affairs so that the tax attaching under the appropriate acts is less than it would have otherwise been." However, this principle began to significantly be challenged by tax authorities and courts, starting with a key shift in tax policy in 1988, empowering CRA through the development of anti-avoidance doctrines, especially Section 245 of the Income Tax Act. GAR. The General Anti-Avoidance Rules, or GAR, allows CRA to have significant strength to deny tax benefits arising from transactions that, while legal and foreman may be allowable previously, are considered abusive avoidance in substance or go against the spirit of the law. This was a major evolution in tax law, moving away from the legal structure of the Westminster case and focusing on the purpose and economic reality of individual transactions. Instead of asking whether or not you followed the law, the courts now started to ask what kind of economic activity took place. What was the structure of the transaction? Was it a facade? And did the transaction defeat the intention of the law, even though the taxpayer followed the letter of the law? But here's the catch. It didn't matter if you followed every rule by the book. If the tax authorities believed you were engaging in a transaction or series of transactions whereby the primary purpose was to attain a tax benefit, well, GAR gave CRA the strength, the power to step in and reassess your tax situation. Essentially, if they believed the arrangement or transaction had no other genuine economic purpose other than to avoid tax, or if it misused certain provisions of the Income Tax Act and its object, spirit, and purpose, CRA could step in and apply GAR and declare it abusive. But wait, there's more. In 2024, GAR got an upgrade. CRA could now call GAR into effect if one of the main purposes of a transaction or series of transactions was to obtain a tax benefit. Prior to 2024, it said it was the primary purpose. Instead of a transaction clearly demonstrating misuse or abuse of the Act, it now says it tends to indicate misuse or abuse. Also in the upgrade were added penalties of up to 25% of the tax benefit received and an extension of a reassessment retroactively for up to 6 years. But if you self-reported the transaction ahead of time, then the new penalties and reassessment period would not apply. Bottom line is, if you told CRA what you're doing, they wouldn't slap these extra fees and penalties on you, but could still pursue a recapture of taxes and plus charge interest. And that's where the trouble really lies. The power has shifted and gives CRA way more of it with a simple shift in the language. Now it feels like instead of following the law and arranging your affairs in the most tax-efficient manner, CRA has a more direct view of what you're doing, sniffing around to find potential taxes and penalties to apply. The Income Tax Act isn't just about following rules, it's about following what the law was meant to achieve it if the legislators missed something. Here's the thing, GAR doesn't target regular tax planning, but it does give tax authorities the power to disallow transactions or arrangements that were deemed to lack significant commercial substance. If they believe a deal is only in place for the sake of avoiding taxes, the consequences can be quite severe. The biggest issue with GAR is that it creates legal uncertainty. You never know if the tax authorities are going to flag your tax strategy as potentially abusive, even if you think you're on solid ground legally. And with that uncertainty, Canadians might feel more hesitant about taking extra measures and steps to reduce their overall tax liability. So why should you care about all of this? Well, if you're running a business or managing your personal affairs, knowing about GAR is absolutely essential. It's a measure that could leave you exposed, even if you think your strategy is perfectly and legally legitimate. So here's 3 things you can do to keep in mind when taking action to lower your taxes. Number 1, proper tax planning must consider not just the law, but also the intention of the transaction. For a very reduced, simple example, an RSP is a retirement savings vehicle first, and the tax deductions of your contributions are really secondary to the retirement planning. Number 2, aggressive strategies that focus solely on technical compliance are becoming increasingly risky and should be contemplated with GAR in mind. Number 3, get the right advice from certified and qualified professionals. Your accountant can speak regarding tax advice, your lawyer can speak to legal advice, your investment advisor can speak to investments, and your insurance advisor can speak to you about how insurance may complement the planning that you have in place already. You wouldn't want your mechanic giving you dental advice, and you certainly wouldn't want your doctor framing your house. Stick to your knitting and get the right advice and then put it to work. If you found this video and the information helpful, hit like and subscribe for more content coming to you very soon.